Sometimes, the hints for an NFL quarterback before the play begins are extremely subtle. Did you catch what happened here? Because Lamar Jackson did. Let's rewind the play and flip to the end zone angle to take a closer look. Number 7 is linebacker Kaiser White. When he sees the Ravens right guard tap the centre on the shoulder to begin the silent count for the snap, he shuffles forward twice. That's the tell for the quarterback. That's a sign that he's blitzing. Jackson can anticipate White coming forward if he sees this movement in the split second before he catches the snap. His process from there tells him to figure out what the knock-on effect of that action is. His focus goes to number 10, Josh Woods. Someone has to cover Jackson's running back. If Woods is blitzing as well, Jackson will have one-on-one coverage across the board and can make the appropriate throw downfield. But if Woods is responsible for the running back, Justice Hill on this occasion, Jackson knows that throw will be wide open. He can go to it straight away. Woods simply has too far to catch up to Hill to cover him. Jackson gets the ball out before White gets to him, and Hill runs free down the right sideline for a huge gain. That gain can be fully attributed to the brain of the Baltimore Ravens quarterback, even though a lot of it came after the catch. Jackson perfectly executed in the pocket. He diagnosed the defense before the snap, read it after the snap, and made an accurate throw. That's how you dismantle a blitz in the NFL. Jackson has made so many of these high-end pocket passer plays so far this season. We've always known he was capable of doing so, but the scheme change away from Greg Roman's offense has set him up to show it off consistently. On this play against the Cincinnati Bengals, Jackson is going to glance at number 57 Jermaine Pratt when he catches the ball. He only looks for a moment because he sees the linebacker turning to double team Mark Andrews, who began to play in the left slot. Jackson's eyes come back to the other side, where number 55 Logan Wilson is coming forward. The quarterback has to take a beat to see if Wilson is blitzing or covering his running back leaking into the flat. When Wilson turns to cover the running back, Jackson knows he can't dump the ball to him outside. But even though the middle of the field is wide open at this stage, the slant route coming into that space is slow developing. Jackson needs to hold the ball for a moment to let Wilson and the running back clear the passing lane. It doesn't bother Jackson that holding the ball brings a tight pocket even tighter to his body as he's releasing the ball. He adjusts his throwing motion to get the ball out cleanly and still hits his receiver in stride for the big gain. You'll hear plenty about Jackson's ability to run and make defenders miss in the open field, but his comfort in tight pockets and his intelligence to pick coverages apart are consistently big factors in his success. Those qualities serve as the foundation of his ability to attack every level of the defense each week. Few plays from any quarterback this season capture the confidence and comfort of a quarterback as much as this one against the Arizona Cardinals. The Ravens are in the red zone. The Cardinals anticipate the route combination, so they get a defender with outside leverage working against every route. So when Jackson hits the top of his drop, he's looking for a double covered Mark Andrews in the back of the end zone. Passing in this area of the field is more difficult than anywhere else because of the lack of space to throw into. The defense has to cover less of the field. But Jackson's space in the pocket is rapidly running out too. At this stage, he looks like he's destined to be sacked. Ronnie Stanley is pushed back so that his foot stands on Jackson's lead leg. Jackson does incredibly well to pull it away to avoid major injury, and while doing so, still manages to stay on the same page as Andrews in the end zone on his adjustment to the coverage. Jackson got every last millisecond he could out of that pocket, and even then he needed to be at his acrobatic best to make the play work. Jackson has the ability to speed up his process when he needs to, but he also shows the patience to take advantage of clean pockets when he gets them. The Indianapolis Colts are playing cover 3 behind a 4-man rush. Jackson takes a short drop and looks to the right side where he has a 3-man route combination attacking each level of the coverage, short, intermediate and deep. Jackson knows that the defenders playing underneath coverage are watching his eyes while he holds the ball in the pocket and the routes develop downfield. He will also have noted that the cornerback to the top of the screen has turned with his sideline route, so he's essentially playing man coverage. With those details, Jackson's eyes go to the running back in the flat. He's not going to throw there, but he can use that check down option to manipulate the coverage and create an open receiver downfield. So when Jackson flips his eyes back to the corner route, the linebacker is running himself out of the passing lane. He gets trapped underneath the ball going in the wrong direction, while the safety over the top wasn't a factor because of his starting position. The outside cornerback can't look for the ball because he turned with the receiver. Jackson's throw perfectly splits the 3 defenders so that Isaiah Likely can protect himself and ensure the ball is caught cleanly. There's no real way to counter Jackson's passing skill set. He can adapt to whatever the defense throws at him. On this play, the Bengals play cover 4. The Ravens' route combinations create a high-low read for Jackson with his running back releasing from the pocket and Nelson Aguilar running a dig route in behind Logan Wilson. Jackson doesn't predetermine where he wants to go with the ball. He lets the defense guide him. When Wilson steps forward and follows the running back for a moment, moment, Jackson immediately begins his throwing motion to hit Aguilar in behind him. But this isn't a wide open throw. The safety is already reacting to Aguilar's route to break on the ball. Jackson recognises this and throws the ball to Aguilar's back shoulder instead of leading him into the hit. Aguilar overruns the ball, which means he still takes a pretty heavy hit, but Jackson's placement meant the ball was never exposed. For this 3rd and 5, the Tennessee Titans are going to show a blitz before the snap but drop out of it. While it's not a blitz, it is a disguised 4-man rush with both defenders over the middle of the field dropping into coverage. The edge rusher on Jackson's blind side comes free to the quarterback because of it. Jackson saw the linebackers drop as soon as it happened, so he's already looking left into the blitz. He still has to get the ball out just before the defender gets to him, but he speeds up his process to do so and hits Odell Beckham in stride on the slant route for a huge gain. Defenses fear being this aggressive with coverage shifts against quarterbacks because of plays such as this one. Jackson recognizing it meant the ball beat the coverage and Beckham weaved his way through the defense after the catch because of that. Against a quarterback such as Jackson, you open yourself up to quick throws but also deep shots by being this aggressive. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be very aggressive with their blitz here, and they're also going to be smart in how they time it. Note Minkah Fitzpatrick's position on the field, highlighted by the blue circle. Remember that. Since the Ravens are on the road facing a loud crowd, they are using a silent count. That means the right guard is going to tap the centre to tell him to snap the ball, similar to the first play in this video. Once this happens, the snap is imminent and the quarterback can't make any alterations to the play call or to his pass protection. When we zoom back out, we see that during that time, Fitzpatrick jumped forward and started his blitz. He's got a head start now, which sets the blitz up for success. But Jackson set his protection properly, so he has time in the pocket to hit the top of his drop and look downfield. There's a hand in his face and he can't step into the throw because of that pressure, but he still gets the ball out. The pressure leads to the ball being slightly underthrown, but it still clears the trailing cornerback, and just as importantly, Jackson pushed the ball to the receiver's outside shoulder. That neutralizes the threat of the safety, who played great coverage over the top. Jackson's downfield passing this year has been as good as anyone's. He's hitting big plays week in and week out. Against the Cleveland Browns, the Ravens draw up a simple wheel route with a wide receiver picking for a running back on the narrow side of the field. When the play develops, the Browns oblige by playing man coverage to that side while keeping all their help on the opposite side of the field. The pick play was ineffective though, so the receiver is facing tight coverage when Jackson begins his throwing motion in the backfield. Jackson lays the ball out in space in front of his receiver and throws with the perfect trajectory to beat the defender in coverage. As the ball arrives, the defender is turning his head back to look for it, so he never sees the receiver make the catch. Jackson wasn't impacted by Myles Garrett looping around behind him as he released the ball either. The Houston Texans tried to bait Jackson into a bad throw on this 3rd and 5 by showing a blitz but dropping out of it at the snap. All of Jackson's quick throws are to his right. He checks that side quickly during his dropback before flipping his concentration to the opposite side of the field. Ronnie Stanley is once again being pushed back into Jackson as he's releasing the ball, so he can't step into his throw. Despite that, he hits Zay Flowers across the face of the deep safety on the opposite side of the field from the far hash. Jackson has generally been derided for his arm strength and supposed inability to push the ball outside the numbers deep downfield throughout his career. His numbers on those throws were mostly a product of him playing in a scheme that didn't set him up to make those throws and with wide receivers who couldn't get open on those routes. This is an example of the type of throw we didn't see Jackson attempt in previous seasons. Zay Flowers is lined up wide to the bottom of the screen. He's going to run 20 yards downfield and then make a sharp cut to the sideline. Jackson is on the right hash mark, so a deep out to the left side of the field is a very difficult throw. The difficulty multiplies when the defense plays cover 3. Flowers is going to be bracketed by a cornerback covering a deep zone and the defender to his side in the underneath zone. And just to make sure the difficulty was at the highest point it could be, the Ravens also don't have a route running beneath that underneath zone, so that defender can sink back as much as he wants to threaten an interception on any underthrown ball. You can't throw this ball any better than Jackson did. Flowers gave him the best window he could possibly get to by running a great route. If your quarterback can hit this throw comfortably, he can make any throw you need him to make. Let's let this play develop for a bit before we look at what's happening. From the coverage and routes perspective, the first thing we must note is the position of the deep safety. He's been drawn to the crossing route, so he's held in the middle of the field. That opens a space to the top of the screen for Odell Beckham's route. Jackson has two problems here. Beckham in this position is no longer the automatic option he was during his prime, and his route is going to bend back towards the sideline, playing him into the coverage of the cornerback underneath him. So despite there being a lot of space for him to throw into, Jackson still has to throw Beckham open. He does that by perfectly leading the receiver downfield towards towards the end zone instead of trying to fit the ball into where his route was supposed to go. You can see the moment of hesitation in Jackson just before he releases the ball. That was him figuring out how to get the ball to his receiver in that situation. This understanding of how to place the ball against tight coverage so that it favours his receivers has shown up throughout this season. For this play against the Titans, Jackson hits the top of his drop and has nobody open downfield. Mark Andrews is peeled off for a check down in the flat after blocking initially. Jackson can take that option since it's 1st and 10. In past years, it would have been his only option. But now that the Ravens have more explosive receivers across the board, Jackson has the option to take a more aggressive mindset and attack windows with less margin for error downfield. This defender is in the perfect position to pick off any throw towards Zay Flowers' route. Jackson has to beat him with ball placement and velocity, and he has to do it with a Titans defensive lineman arriving in his face as the ball leaves his hand. Of course, Jackson obliges. You can't throw this ball any better than he did, and Flowers has the athleticism to redirect at the top of his route to track it down. On 2nd and 11 in the same game, the Ravens call 4 vertical routes. This plays into the defense's favour as they are playing quarters. It becomes a one-on-one across the board as the play develops. This is the point when Jackson begins his throwing motion. He can see the defender covering Mark Andrews' seam route from the slot is looking back at him rather than playing Andrews. While the primary defender is giving Andrews the chance to run in behind him to get open, the cornerback outside is already leaving his receiver to run over the top of his route. The Titans have set a trap for Jackson to bait him into a bad decision and get an interception in Ravens territory. Jackson's eyes opened left and he read the coverage from left to right. He likely never saw or considered the outside cornerback going over the top of Andrews' route. That's exactly what the Titans wanted. In spite of this, Jackson's pass is inch perfect into Andrews. The defensive back had a read on the throw and still couldn't get to the ball. Jackson's relationship with Andrews has always been very strong. If he had lost his tight end in previous years, it would have decimated their passing game. Now they have more weapons, it's less of an issue, but Andrews' absence is still felt. He had drop issues that prevented him from being as valuable as Travis Kelce or George Kittle, but his ratio of making key plays versus drops was heavily in his favour. It's less so with the team's other skill position players. This could have been one of the Ravens' highlight plays of the season. Nelson Aguilar is no longer defined by his drops and he's proving to be a very valuable piece in his role for the Ravens offense, but he leaves one behind on this occasion. Aguilar is in the slot on the right side. The defense is going to play cover 1, which means the whole of the defensive front will wind up blitzing the quarterback. Andrews is in the left slot, and Jackson encourages the deep safety to go to his route when he initially catches the ball. That leaves Aguilar in a one-on-one down the right sideline. He is running a fade route. The Steelers get backside pressure against Jackson when he's at the top of his drop, but his timing means the ball gets out before that pressure becomes a factor. We should note before we move the play on that Jackson is on the left hash mark. Aguilar's fade route is outside the numbers on the right sideline, roughly 40 yards away. Jackson's ball arrives perfectly into the hands of Aguilar, but goes through them. He didn't get it, but Jackson deserved the 44-yard touchdown that this play would have resulted in if Aguilar had caught the ball. That was an open fade route from deep. On this occasion, Jackson is going to hit a back shoulder throw to his running back running a wheel route in the red zone. This time, he's throwing into tight coverage, but the process is the same to initially hold the deep safety in the middle of the field before looking to the right side. Rookie running back Keaton Mitchell has been very good for the Ravens with the ball in his hands, but he allows this inch-perfect throw to hit him in the stomach and fall to the ground instead of catching the touchdown. To see a version of this play where this throw is completed, we need to revisit Aguilar in the Cincinnati Bengals game. Aguilar is in the slot to the right again running the same route. Jackson is less concerned with the safety this time because of his starting position and the distance to the target. He drops back and gets the ball out quickly, hitting Aguilar's outside shoulder by the near pylon for the touchdown. You'll note so far that every play in this video has been of Jackson working from within the pocket. He's excelling once again this year with his legs, but while his scrambling remains dangerous, the new offense and his new weapons have set him up to be an even better passer after moving off the top of his drop. His movement now sets him up to throw the ball more often than it did in the past. Zay Flowers' game-tying touchdown against the Rams on Sunday was a product of Jackson resetting from the top of his drop to buy time and to change the angle of his throw. Jackson sees the defensive end crash hard inside and can feel the pressure coming around the edge of his right tackle. By resetting proactively instead of waiting at the top of his drop, he buys enough time for his routes to develop downfield. The Ravens had to throw to the end zone here because of the situation. Flowers is his best bet, but Jackson needs Aguilar to clear the outside defender first. Changing the angle of the throw made it easier for Jackson to avoid leading Aguilar too far across the field, but it also meant he had to throw the ball over the linebacker in the passing lane. Despite those factors working against him, Jackson drives the ball over Donald and the linebacker, hitting Flowers in the widest possible window for the touchdown. Jackson's movement on this occasion allowed the play to function as designed, but oftentimes Jackson has had to create outside of structure to hit big plays. On 2nd and 29, there isn't a structure that is likely to get an open throw downfield for your quarterback. Jackson faces a 2nd and 29 on this play against the Cleveland Browns. Like many teams do in this situation, the Ravens will keep a tight end and a running back in to chip block on the edge rushers. The purpose of this is to account for any blitzes and to assure that the routes downfield have time to develop, since the offense needs a chunk play. The running back's chip block is bad, so the right tackle is easily beaten. Jackson resets to his left to buy time and rebuild the integrity of the pocket. His eyes stay downfield while he does so. This is what Jackson sees downfield. None of his 3 receivers are open, nor are they going to come open. He could take one of the checkdowns for a short gain that would likely lead to a punt. Instead, Jackson stays on his toes in the pocket before he's forced to escape. Staying in the middle of the field forced the coverage to stay disciplined downfield and bought time for Zay Flowers to eventually come open. Jackson follows up his movement behind the line of scrimmage with an immaculate throw on the move deep down the right sideline. That's a 50-yard throw into a relatively tight window. 3rd and 18 is even tougher than 2nd and 29. That's what Jackson faces against the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Again, the running back fails to chip block properly. This time he doesn't even touch the edge rusher. So at the top of his drop, Jackson has nobody to throw the ball to and is under threat of being sacked immediately. He escapes that rusher expertly and is then sprinting through the left flat. Jackson didn't have a receiver down the left sideline to throw to, so he reset the throw back in field. Not many quarterbacks in the league could reset like this with a defender standing right next to him, but Jackson can stop on a dime when a defender can't. After doing so, he delivers a touch throw over a linebacker who fully extended in the passing lane to connect with Flowers for 29 yards and a first down. The comfort that Jackson has working outside of the pocket is just as impressive as his athleticism is. That was showcased on that play, but it's even more evident on this one. This is a 1st and 10 play, so it's not behind the down and distance like the previous 2. Let your eyes focus on the right side of the Seattle Seahawks defensive line. They run a stunt action when the ball is snapped. That gets number 57, Frank Clark, to Jackson in the pocket. Jackson has no choice but to bail out the back door. Despite bailing left, Jackson's eyes go inside to where Odell Beckham is rather than to the left sideline. From this point of the play onwards, he's under pressure to use the ball, whether that is by scrambling or throwing it. You will see other quarterbacks in this scenario rush their mechanics or make a rash decision because they know they're under that pressure. If you focus your eyes on Beckham at the bottom of the screen, you can see he begins to run in behind the linebacker across the field. That's the logical move, and it will beat that defender's coverage because he's coming forward. But Jackson holds the ball for a beat longer instead of throwing it at this point. He encourages Beckham to stop his route and sit in the space in the middle of the field. Beckham is on the same wavelength, and Jackson makes a spectacular throw back across his body to hit him in the chest for a big play. The composure and control here is aided by his supreme athleticism, but it's not a product of it. They are 2 separate aspects of what makes him an elite quarterback, and from the defense's point of view, what more can they do to try and contain him? The answer is not a whole lot besides hoping that he beats himself. Jackson is already an MVP winner, but at 26 years of age, he is entering the prime of his career and playing in an offense that finally allows him to show off all of his talents. Even with Andrews out, this is the best chance this team has ever had at winning a Super Bowl with Jackson at the helm. But even if they don't, for a quarterback who has been derided more than celebrated throughout his career, for a quarterback who is discredited as even a credible quarterback prospect when he's coming out of college, he's already established who he is emphatically. He's a generational talent, right up there alongside Patrick Mahomes.